C-377 isn't just flawed, it's illegal. Quand je rencontre les chefs, que ce soit avec Greg Selinger au Manitoba ou Pauline Marois au Québec, j'essaie toujours de convaincre les provinces de s'impliquer avec nous dans des contestations à venir devant les tribunaux. Yes, we'll fight, but we need the provinces on side on this one as well, because their area of jurisdiction is being invaded by this legislation. So the labor movement, of course, will stand up as one and go before the courts and throw out this outlandish bill, but it's going to be even stronger if we have the provinces standing up and saying, that's enough, that's our jurisdiction, keep your hands off it. You know, all you have to do is look at what's being done with temporary foreign workers. I saw a nice paper by Tom Walken in today's Star on this. We've been tracking it for a long time. I met with the steelworkers in Prince George, British Columbia. They were the first ones to ring the alarm bell about what was being done, bringing in temporary foreign workers trained in China to work in the mines when we had thousands of Canadians willing, able, and trained to do that work. Oh, by the way, they made one of the conditions that you could only work there if you spoke Mandarin. So what's going on in a country like Canada if we're allowing this sort of situation? Of course, temporary foreign workers, and UFCW deserves full credit for fighting hard to unionize them and to get better working conditions for them. Yeah, bravo. How does that happen in a country like ours that in this day and age, we're repeating the errors of the past? We've apologized for the head tax and for the treatment of the Chinese workers brought in to build the railway. How can we have it as a national policy under the Conservatives to guarantee them lower wages, no working conditions, less rights than other Canadian workers? Let's stand up together and raise everybody up instead of letting them bring everybody down. Conservatives interfere in the collective bargaining process. Canada Post, Air Canada, CP Rail. In the case of Canada Post, frankly, they broke their own record. You know, first of all, the federal government locked out. Everybody talked about a strike. It was a lockout. The federal government locked out the postal workers who had been up until that time working. Then they turned around and looked at the Canadian public and they said, oh my God, the postal workers have stopped working. We better legislate them back to work. Have you ever seen a clearer demonstration of bad faith in your life? I know I haven't. J'étais là avec Denis Lemay et les travailleurs des postes. J'étais là, ils étaient chez nous. On a fait avec notre nouvelle équipe, rappelez-vous. Ça faisait à peine quelques semaines que notre nouvelle équipe, tout le monde disait, ils sont trop jeunes. Vous les avez vus comme moi, se tenir debout à la Chambre des communes. Vous représenter, défendre vos droits. Ils méritent parce que c'était le plus long filibuster de l'histoire du Canada. Et je peux vous garantir que c'est exactement cette détermination qu'ils vont continuer de mener dans tous les combats à la Chambre des communes. Now, of course, Conservatives aren't the only ones who have taken a pass on respecting workers' rights. This is very interesting, particular interest here in Toronto. Right now, the Liberal Party is advertising their special discounted rates for members to fly Porter to the Liberal Leadership Convention last month. Special rates to cross the picket line. Just as Porter workers, members of COPE, are on strike for fair wages and traveler safety. Well, turns out that this week they were telling us on a Porter flight that they want us to just watch them. Well, we're going to do more than watch them. We're going to take notes. We're going to talk to Canadians about who they are. You know, they've stopped every single attempt to get anti-scab legislation through the Parliament of Canada. We're going to be there to remind Canadians and workers about that, and we'll fight them like we'll fight Stephen Harper's Conservatives. At the same time that they have the nerve to talk to us and give lessons about people who don't work hard enough, they're continuing to subsidize some of Canada's worst polluters. Sustainability, as you know, is going to be one of the central issues of the next election campaign, and it all goes together. Because the hollowing out of the manufacturing sector is the result of their destabilizing the balanced Canadian economy we had painstakingly built up together since the Second World War. Losing hundreds of thousands of good-paying manufacturing jobs. Go visit southwestern Ontario, towns like London that are now one of the highest unemployment areas in the whole country. That's unacceptable. How can we allow that when these are the areas that were the motor of our economy across the country? We will fight. We will work with you, mais on va travailler aussi avec des gens de vision. La CSN dernièrement a produit un document très important en vue de créer une vision d'avenir pour le secteur industriel. Nous allons travailler ensemble. Nous allons réussir à rééquilibrer l'économie parce que oui, l'État a un rôle à jouer à établir une économie qui marche pour tout le monde et on sera là pour le rétablir avec vous. A word on trade deals as well, because I want to reassure anyone who might think otherwise. We're going to keep a very careful, critical eye on any trade deal that comes before us. So don't think for a second that we would ever do anything other than stand up against a trade deal that could in any way compromise public protection or environmental protection. We're going to be there foursquare on these issues, taking a really good look at these things. We are more open. We're not going to say as a reflex that we're against something that we haven't seen the details of, but believe me, we're going to look at those details, and if they do turn out to be against the environment or against the public interest, we will stand up against them. Don't worry about that. One of the biggest problems we have is that this government has failed to apply the basic rules of sustainable development like polluter pay. We continue to subsidize the companies that are polluting and using the air, the soil, and the water as an unlimited free dumping ground. People are starting to take notice, but the Conservatives thought they were giving a gift to their corporate buddies when they scrapped environmental legislation in this country, when they got rid of any real, credible, thorough environmental assessment process. But you might have noticed one thing: Northern Gateway hasn't started to be built. Because you cannot, in this day and age, dictate that sort of big project from the top down. When people don't believe you, when they don't trust you, nothing will move forward. The smarter people in business and in the corporate world are starting to realize that what some members of their board of directors thought was a gift by destroying environmental legislation has in fact turned out to be a poison chalice. As if the rest of the world can't figure out that Canada is the only country in the world that's withdrawn from the Kyoto Protocol and scrapped most of its environmental legislation. We will get back to a stage where we are protecting the environment. It's the right of future generations to live in a clean environment, and we will guarantee that right. 2015, we have an obligation. We have an obligation together to send a strong message that Canadians working together deserve better. For once, we want to be able to vote for the change we want and actually get it. Decades of Liberals flashing left and turning right, that's over. The NDP can be trusted, it can be counted on, and we'll do this together in 2015. Our country is filled with examples of what's possible when people of common values work together towards common goals. The principle has driven the NDP and the CLC to achieve so much for working Canadians. It's what drove our strong working relationship with past NDP leaders like Jack Layton and Ed Broadbent, and it's what will drive us to continue to work together for years to come. To give working Canadians a seat at the table, to fight for job security, for universal public health care, and for a stronger pension plan that allows seniors to retire with dignity. We'll fight that fight together this June when the finance ministers next meet to discuss pension reform. We'll fight that fight together every single day. Canada is, at its heart, a progressive country. We're a country that understands we achieve so much more when we take care of each other, when we lift each other up. And we're a country defined by what unites us, not what divides us. You know, the truth is that a farmer in Melfort, Saskatchewan, and a fisher in Gaspé, Quebec, have more in common with each other than either one of them does with Stephen Harper. That's why, with your help in 2015, New Democrats will present Canadians with a clear choice. 2015, un choix clair. Un choix clair et enfin on va pouvoir voter pour le changement que l'on désire et l'obtenir. A choice between a government that puts lobbying interests ahead of the public interest and a government that creates a balanced, sustainable 21st century economy that leaves no one behind. Between a government that spies on Canadians without jobs and a government that creates good jobs for Canadians. Between a government that wants us to settle for less and a government that knows that we can, together, strive for more. The choice before us is in our hands, if we want it. Our future is in our hands, if we work for it. And together, we can build the Canada of our dreams. Merci beaucoup. On continue.